Okay, and I would like to start by welcoming all the participants, dear participants of our webinar. And I would like to remind you that tonight we will be inspired by our dear Marta Rosińska, who has been in touch, in contact, in direct contact, very close contact with IATEFL Poland for many years, and who is always ready to inspire us, all of us, her colleague teachers, with her new creatively designed ideas. And a few words about Marta, because of course I'm not going to provide you with all the details. It would be a long story. So just to remind you about the most general things. The first of them is that Marta holds MA in Linguistics. Marta is active at University of Łódź. She also has an advanced diploma in English teaching management from the University of Cambridge. She has graduated from Uczelnia Leona Koźmińskiego in another area, yet another area, psychology in business. So a nice portfolio of professional, a nice professional portfolio, I should have said. And many other elements of Marta's portfolio should be mentioned, but we don't have time. So I would like just to remind you that Marta is head teacher trainer and director of studies at the English Language Center of University of Łódź. But at the same time, she is a freelance teacher trainer. She is a mentor and academic project director, including the Innovative Thought Leader Academy, and so on and so forth. She is also the founder and manager of the ROK RELACJI W EDUKACJI, a year of relations in educational area initiative. And she is very prolific and highly esteemed English language teaching author for Macmillan Poland and Macmillan Ukraine as well. And Marta has already participated in our series, not to mention all the conferences with her plenaries and very fascinating other sessions. Last year, in 2022, Marta Rosińska, together with Grzegorz Śpiewak, presented the third webinar in 22-23 series titled VAT in ELT. And I will provide you with the summary of this webinar because it's most probably available on our YouTube channel. Today, a very important topic for every single one of us teachers, universal design for learning. Universal design which values diversity, viewing different learner differences rather as strengths than problems. Also valuing voice and choice of the participants of the whole process, giving deeper understanding to us educators of universal design learning, along with practical classroom-ready strategies, will be the main goal of today's webinar. And of course, last but not least, universal design for learning will help us all remove emotional and cognitive barriers on the side of us, but also on the side, to begin with, on the side of our students, fostering a more inclusive learning environment. So, dear Marta, over to you.
Thank you. Not sure what I can say after such an introduction. I better deliver, right?
I like your sense of humor.
I used to. Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yes, indeed. I'm broadcasting from Łódź, which is my hometown. Where do you come from? Perhaps you'd like to tell us in the chat box where you come from. I think I've seen some people I know, a lot of friends. So thank you for coming and joining me. I'm hoping to hear your comments as well. I value people's comments. Thank you. Yes, lovely. Okay, and indeed, I'll be talking about UDL, which these days is a concept that includes a number of key aspects. It's huge in many countries. Obviously, the country number one, which is interested and heavily, shall we say, involved with UDL is the States. This is where the concept comes from. But there are also plenty of European countries where UDL has become the norm in education, or at least teachers are encouraged to take it on board and implement it as much as possible. Now, UDL, I'll tell you a little bit about the concept itself, the history behind the concept, what it contains, and how it is potentially something that we might want to consider in our teaching. And obviously, there will be some hands-on activities that perhaps as teachers you value, as well as some input to understand the concept. Okay, so I hope this is the plan for the next 60 minutes or so. Okay, key concepts in UDL. It's hard to like choose just a few keywords because there's so much to UDL, but I had to decide what to focus on, and my major concern here is variability. We all are different. We all learn differently. Sometimes it also depends on the subject that you learn. So perhaps when you study a language, you may have a certain preference, but when you study physics or maths, you may want to have other preference. Yeah. So basically, we vary from subject to subject, as well as psychologically, obviously, in our needs to learn and the way we absorb and perceive knowledge as such. In the past, nobody cared about difference. I think now, this day and age, education has become and is becoming and will be becoming inclusive, and there is no way back. And any teacher who does not understand the importance of inclusion and looking after students' well-being, in a sense, academic well-being as well as psychological well-being, is not going to be happy at school with new generations of students. Another key concept for UDL is voice and choice. So basically giving the students as much agency as it is possible. Voice, which means the students can express themselves, their opinions, and choice. They have a certain amount of agency over what happens in class. The more, obviously, the better. UDL is also a framework, which I will be telling you about in a moment, which pays a particular attention to multiple means of engaging the learner, multimodal, shall we say, means of engaging the learner, of representing the knowledge, which means giving the students, in our case, vocabulary, teaching them grammar, so how you present the knowledge to the students, as well as action and expression, which is basically how you allow your students to show what they know. So partly assessment, partly allowing students to simply produce or reproduce or reprocess what they have learned in class. The whole framework, UDL, sometimes people criticize it for not being enough grounded or grounded enough in science. But there is a lot of science behind it because UDL is based on neuroscience, and the concept as such, I believe, has a lot to say for itself. Okay, guys, so let's move on to the next part. So as a framework, I'd like you to think about this. Can you have a look at these two photographs? And what's your kind of initial impression? How does this make you feel when you look at these stairs? You may comment if you want. We have time, I think, to address some comments. If you perhaps are a parent and you have a small child in a buggy, then you know how it feels. Maybe you have a relative who is elderly. and finds it difficult to walk. Maybe you have someone with a disability, or maybe you've just broken your leg. And when you look at this, this makes me cross because it shows to us how irresponsible the people who create our space around us can be. But this also makes me think about what barriers are or exist around us that prevent us from actually happy living. Yes, this makes us very uncomfortable. Now, when I looked at this, I thought, this is just, you know, a town, a city somewhere in Poland. I think it's in Elbląg or somewhere. Sorry, Elbląg, if you are represented here. But it also, I thought, okay, if such barriers exist in towns and cities, do they exist in our classrooms? And if so, what can I as a teacher do that is within my power to make students struggle less, basically, because these people are clearly struggling, yes? So every time now I think about my lessons and what I do in the classroom is I have this picture on the left in mind, thinking, okay, is my lesson good enough in terms of removing the barriers from my students as such? Okay, so that's it. Now have a look at this set of pictures. What do you see in here? You probably, as me, can see two brilliant solutions that have been around for decades now. Sliding doors in supermarkets, yep, and a lovely fluorescent, very visible pedestrian crossing. How does this differ from the first set of pictures? I think it's, you know, clear. You can easily see the difference. I don't know if you know, but sliding doors were originally invented for people in wheelchairs. And then suddenly everyone realized that, wow, what a brilliant invention. It doesn't just help people in wheelchairs, it also helps people who have kids in their buggies, maybe, who have elderly relatives, perhaps, who need help as we walk through the door together. Yes. So suddenly an invention that was that people came up with for the people with disabilities started helping other people. Okay. The same for the pedestrian crossing. Yes. This was designed for people who are partially blind or with impaired vision. And then everyone noticed that it's not just for people who can't see very well, it's also for people simply because it's for everyone else, because it's nicely marked, you can see where you're going and you feel safer. Yeah. So again, in education, what can you do to create an environment in which what happens is seamless? So no one who possibly feels unable to study with the rest of the class, perhaps is neurodivergent. What can I do as a teacher to help them study without noticing that they are not as proficient in something as someone else, or as the so-called average student, yeah, the so-called normal student, which obviously we mustn't use anymore, right? So this is UDL. UDL is basically about empathy. If you ask me to summarize this in one sentence, I would say basically empathy. That's what it is, understanding how other people feel and trying not to point out, in a sense, their weaknesses. Look at them as beautiful people who have a lot to bring into the classroom. Yeah? So not a weakness, but a strength. And as a result, you help other people along the way. So this is basically UDL, right? In a nutshell. Okay. Now, have a look at this selection of slides, like a sequence of slides. I'd like you to have a look at this one. How does it make you feel? Would you say it's clear enough? Would you say it's nice? You can kind of make sense of it easily. Okay, that's one. How does this slide make you feel? Do you like the font? Do you like the contrast between the background and what's written on the slide? Do you find the font easy to read? Do you like the colors, as I said? Okay, and going back to my original slide, the first one, which is basically this, yeah? So when you think about UDL, it's also about making things minimalistic in a sense that this slide, the one I'm showing you at the moment, will be clear to everyone in the classroom, absolutely everyone in the classroom. This slide may only be read by people who definitely in some cases are not neurodivergent, because they will not be able to read the font, perhaps. For people who really can see very well, yes, and can make sense of what is written. And this slide is totally messy and will not be clear for many people. And for many, many years, I did not have an awareness of this at all. So UDL, when I started dealing with this a few years back now, about, I don't know, this was before the pandemic when I first read the book. I thought, whoa, you know, that's easy to change. I don't mind. I don't have to produce something like this in class. I can easily produce something like that if it helps everyone and people basically don't notice that, you know, somebody cannot read properly, etc. So one of the reasons why I took to UDL so quickly. So again, I'd like you to think about your lessons in terms of barriers that we as teachers unintentionally may create. And I stress unintentionally, because we are good people. We want to be good people, yes? But occasionally we create barriers without realizing that this is the case. Okay, so how can we make our teaching more seamless, perhaps, and accessible? Now, this guy is called Ronald Mace. He was a professor who unfortunately had polio, and this caused what it caused. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't move properly. And he noticed that his university was totally not prepared for his disability. He was an architect. And it's good to note that actually universal design comes from architecture. It's not about education. No, it wasn't in the first place. It was about designing space around you, which later on, as you can probably imagine, was transferred into education. Mace coined the phrase universal design, how to design space for everyone to be able to move around, but without, you know, showing that, okay, I have a disability, help me out. Yeah. So how to make it seamless again. So it's because of him. This was in 1985, if my memory doesn't fail me. Then in the 90s, it was taken up by University of North Carolina in the United States, and a research group called CAST, Center for Applied Technology, which exists until now, which has produced the newest guidelines, which is UDL 3.0. If you want to Google this, you go to basically, you put CAST or UDL 3.0, and you get the newest guidelines. They come from 2024. And if you want to familiarize yourselves with this, you are more than welcome. But this is all an American concept which has spread across the world. So started with architecture, then it went into digital and communications and internet to make sure that people who use, for example, different softwares or applications can use them despite their disability, this or that one, yes? So digital. Then we noticed, this was beginning of, I think 2005, that it spread into how we communicate with other people, using your voice, your body. How do you give feedback to someone who is, for example, neurodivergent, etc. So we've kind of sussed out how to do this better. And then it transcended into relations, and how lack of proper relations in the classroom may cause barriers in education, which we all know about. Yeah? So as you can see, it kind of sipped through a number of layers before it got into education. But I think that's why it's so valid, because so many people have noticed the merit of this approach. So to sum up, it was from physical barriers, yes, Ronald Mays, to psychosocial barriers, which still exist in many schools, and how to get rid of this. I don't know if you're familiar with this lady, Louise Lord Nelson, a very prolific author and a person directly involved with CAST and UDL. This is the second edition of her book. I think she's now writing the third edition. I had the pleasure of working with her not long ago on a webinar, and she's a wonderful lady. And when I read the book, again, some time ago, these questions struck me. The first one was, as I mentioned already, what barriers do I, as a teacher, as Marta Rosińska, who seems to have had so much experience, what barriers do I still create for my learners? And when I started thinking about it, I found quite a few. And for me, what was a great consolation from Louis was this question. You will not become a UDL expert straight away, because it's about unlearning things. It's about changing your mindset. It's about willingness to meet your students, in a sense. But this question was very helpful for me. Before the pandemic, we're talking about what, 6-7 years ago, yes? What aspects of UDL makes sense to me? And originally, I looked through it and thought, God, this is so demanding. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's impossible. But then I started introducing this into, or perhaps implementing this into my lessons step by step. And this was a revelation to me. Okay, when I look at this, have a look. These are some of the concepts from UDL. One part of this is definitely about how you prepare your materials, how you make them accessible to your learners with various either disabilities or neurodivergent students. And I thought, okay, as a language, this is just a selection, by the way. As a language teacher, what can I do? What can I implement? What is easy? What is doable for me? The first one is like provide materials before and after the lesson. Well, after the lesson, I don't have a problem with this, but before the lesson, it might help some people, but students might do this at home. And what are they going to do in class? They will look up the answers. Perhaps these days, ChatGPT. Yeah, so in class, I'm going to have trouble. So I wasn't sure about this, and I'm still not. Although I've got some adult students, and there's this one lady who asked me at the beginning of this academic year, she said, the text that we read in class, can you, if it's not from the book, can you please send it to me before the class? Because then I struggle. I can't read it very well. I can't see very well. And I feel like I'm stupid. So I do send her the text, and she's so much happier and performs so much better in class. She reads it again. So that's wonderful. But on the whole, I don't feel comfortable with this. Use large fonts and serif fonts, yes? That's obvious. I can do this, no problem. I've done that. Color combinations, no problem. I've changed this. No flickering animations. I've done that. Transcripts and audio support. Well, I do that very often for various videos, perhaps, or give students audio script when we listen again. But because I teach English, it's a language which is tested. I teach towards exams, then it's very difficult to, get students used to having an audio script, because in the exam, they will not have it, basically. So they have to learn how to listen without the audio script. So this does not always make sense to me as a language teacher. And the last one on this list, because by no means is not finished, how to be granular. And this is something I have implemented into my teaching, and I love it. Do you know what it means to be granular as a teacher? If you teach kids, teenagers, or even adults these days, you have to be granular. I love this word. You might have some ideas. Granular is when you chunk down what happens in class. So your activities are, let's say, no longer than 5 or 10 minutes. You have no sequences like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because people's focus isn't what it was. So this helps me a lot. And I can see that my students basically follow. And students who need more time, students who need to focus more, also follow. So this granularity, as it is referred to in UDL, is a concept that it's basically crucial. It's crucial to what happens in the classroom. You may have different experience. You may have students who can fantastically focus on stuff for 60 minutes, but that's not the case most often. Okay, so some of these make sense to you. Some of these initially don't. So don't be afraid if there's something like, well, I would never do it. Okay, guys, then there came the second 2 books which I read, and they introduced me to the concept of access and accessibility. And this struck me again because when you think about it, sort of on the surface, they seem pretty similar. But the books explain to me that students may have access to something. So they have access to my PowerPoint, they have access to the course book, they have access to other students, but it's not accessible from their point of view. I hope you understand what I'm saying. You have it, you have access to it, but despite having access, it's not accessible. It's not helping you learn. And UDL is about making things as accessible to everyone in class as possible. We talk about this as optimizing access, optimizing, because you will never be perfect. You cannot please everyone, but you can try and make it as accessible as possible. So these things, they've resonated with me because, I want to be a good teacher. I want to show empathy. I want to become a better human. So as a result, they resonated with me. Okay. If this was like a live workshop, we could put you in pairs and get you to discuss things. But maybe you would like to screenshot these questions if you want. And think about this. What elements of your course rely on single stream material? So how often do you really have to only give the text without getting the students to listen as well as read, for example? How often do you really have to play the video where students have no access to audio scripts? Is it always the case, or can you perhaps change? Okay. The second question, what assessment in your course require learners to demonstrate their skill in only one way? So if I prepare students for the exam and they have to learn how to write an essay, it's tough. The only way you can show me how to write an essay is by writing an essay. Yeah, that's it. But obviously our teaching is not just about teaching towards the exam, at least I hope not. And therefore, there will be opportunities for the students to demonstrate what they have learned through different ways. It doesn't have to be always a speaking task. It could be maybe a writing task. Yeah? It could be designing a game. There are many different ways in which students can actually show what they've learned. And I'll show you some examples of what I do. And finally, what are the points in your course where students always have difficulty with the same concepts? And this also makes me wonder, to what extent is what I do, because I have my favorite activities or favorite ways of presenting language, and I don't want to unlearn. And as a result, because I'm an unlearner, my students don't find it accessible. So 3 questions that perhaps if you wake up tomorrow in the morning with your morning coffee, you can ponder. Okay, guys, universal design for learning these days is often called design for all. Seems perhaps more to do with education, perhaps, than architecture. I don't know. Design for all is also a term you may come across, so don't be surprised if you do. Okay, guys, let's start with the practicalities. So I hope you understand that UDL is a framework that is trying to make education more inclusive, seamless, so people who are, for example, neurodivergent, do not notice that certain tasks are done simply because of them, and otherwise they would not cope, because that's not the point. Simply about making things accessible, equitable, and empathetic. That's it. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with formative assessment. Something in this country we were talking about, I don't know how many years ago, 2 decades ago or something, and we all got excited about it, and some people still, I hope, use at least parts of it. UDL, guys, is about slowing down. If anyone is looking for like a magic potion, how to speed up and how to make students learn faster, ultimately they will learn better and faster and more efficiently, but you have to slow down, because otherwise students simply will not follow. You may remember from formative assessment the idea of the traffic lights. I sort of rediscovered that when I started practicing UDL a bit more, where I'm sure you know the concept. You introduce some vocabulary, grammar structure, you explain, you do your best, and then you ask your students how well they've grasped the concept. And you give them either pieces of paper, which are circles in 3 different colors, or perhaps you get them to say red, yellow, green, yes, depending on what resources you have. And this taught me, again, that in most cases, students kind of feel there's a couple of students who are green, most students kind of yellow, and some students are red, which means basically that perhaps what I've done is not clear. There's no point in moving on, because if students did not understand what I'm saying, then that they will not be able to do the tasks which follow. So it's pointless, because it's a waste of the lesson. So I go back again, yeah, and try to re-explain the concepts. Another one which I like, this one. Are you familiar with fist to 5? It was originally used in voting to figure out how much people agree with different concepts. Anyone familiar with fist to 5? Okay, basically, if you don't understand, you show your fist. If you understand, you need help, just show the finger. Make sure it's not the middle finger, because it may come across as a little rude. So show the right fingers. I need more practice, etc. This is just a gesture, I would say, towards my students, who I respect and treat as human beings. And I want to know from them how much they have actually understood. Sometimes when I do various courses and postgraduate studies, and some tutors can slow down and make sure that people follow, because some concepts are difficult in leadership, for example, my recent acquisition. And some concepts, you have questions, you want to slow down and ask. And the same happens in classroom. We can't just rush like stupid, because it just won't work. I know how it feels, but it's counterproductive. So it's a nice technique. I like that as well. Okay, now I need your imagination. I need your imagination. I hope you've had a good holiday, or Christmas time, New Year time, and you went somewhere nice. Or if not, you stayed at home and you had a nice staycation and restful. I'd like you now to imagine that you teach, I don't know, B1, B2, maybe B1 plus class. And you're teaching your students these words. So they have these expressions, shall we say. Okay, so island, getaway, or city break, castle tour. Those in bold is the target vocab that you want your students to learn. So please have a look. Okay, I always like this sort of this and that activities, where students basically have to decide which one they would go for, choose. I also like when students can create this themselves. So once we teach expressions like this, then I give time to the students, the choice, and I want them to create this and that exercise. So their choice, basically, of how they want to go about this. Okay, so imagine this is the vocab we've been practicing. Students have come up with this idea, this and that. They discuss this, etc. And the next lesson, you want the students obviously to revise. Yes, you want to see how much they remember. And this is where UDL, to me, has become very helpful. Because one of the techniques I learned, and this was long time ago, I'm sure you know it as well, is like you have these sticks, and on the sticks you may either write vocabulary, structures, whatever you want. But I started collecting sticks with different types of activities that I do with my students. They're quite kind of familiar with. And I put them in a cup, or this could be slips of paper. They don't have to be wooden sticks. And obviously, as a teacher, you have lots of ideas that you use. And this is kind of analog way of looking at it. And the students are familiar. They're familiar with the type of activities. And at the beginning of the lesson, you don't tell them how to revise the vocabulary, because people are different. Some may want to write things down. Some may want to discuss the language. Some may want to speak. So I give the students the chance to draw the type of activity they wish to do. And it actually works. And you can see that some people never choose particular sticks or particular slips of paper because they don't like this type of activity. It's not helpful to them. Yes. So, why not? Something very similar, which I'm sure a lot of you do, I call it revision teams or revision tables, which is basically like stations that you create around the classroom. In UDL, they call it zoning the classroom. So you kind of zone the classroom up. You put different activities in different parts of the classroom. And that's what I do. I tell you what. So once I've practiced the vocabulary, we looked at, connected with traveling, I, around the classroom, create either stations or posters on the wall, if I'm allowed, in a particular classroom, or yet where I teach is particularly hazardous because you can get told off for hanging up stuff on the wall. But anyway, I create different teams, and I get the students to come into the classroom and either pair themselves up or work on their own, because I totally respect this preference, and decide which task they would like to do. Yeah, so would they like to practice vocabulary that we studied in the form of acronyms, matching, etc. And I create little tasks, and it doesn't take me long anymore, basically. With ChatGPT as well, it's much easier. So the first team is team acronyms, and the students have to decide what words are hidden under the acronyms. So if the expression was see view, perhaps, then they will have S and V. Yes, for see view. I don't like acronyms. It's not the way I want to learn. I wouldn't choose that. But a lot of students like that because it has a puzzle element to it. Another exercise is team matching. So students have to match see and view. Yeah, so there will be tasks that the students have to match. Team categories, they will have to decide what 3 or 4 categories they can divide the words into. They choose the categories, it's up to them. Team translated. I write some words, the task is to translate it either into English or into Polish. Team talk is where they will see 5, 6 questions, 7 questions, depending, and they will have to use the words as they discuss things. Team QR code. So instead of analog, you go digital and you come up with a QR code with some activity in there. So honestly, this has helped a lot of students want to study vocabulary because they have the chance and the choice. And remember, UDL is about the choice, giving students some agency. It's still very much controlled, yes, by me, but there's some choice. It's not like everybody has to do the acronyms, for example. How often do I do it? Do I do it every lesson? Well, I would call myself an intermediate UDL user. I'm hoping to become advanced, but for the time being, I'm sort of like, in most lessons, but not all of them yet. Okay. Are you familiar with this, guys? This has been around for many, many years. UDL, you will always see that. One of the key activities in UDL is choice board. Sometimes you can see an American equivalent, which is tic-tac-toe instead, where again, a lot of them are to be found online, ready-made, if you wish. So students can study words in a number of ways. They choose which is the most appropriate for them. Or what is even better, you get your students to invent similar types of activities that they would like to take part in. And students are very creative, so they will come up with, this is what my students have come up with some time ago. And we keep adding to the list. So again, at the beginning of the class, give them the list. Eventually, you will have about 20 or even more types of activities that students can perform and get them to choose what they do. As I say, UDL is about choice, and it's very helpful for the students. Okay, I'd like you to read this text. It's, I know it's cringy, but it's just a short text I needed. Silly, isn't it? I'm sorry. But it does the trick, yeah? Okay. I'm sure you do a lot of reading with your students. The texts have become shorter and shorter. This is sad because I think the skill of reading is so important. So it's not that I always get my students to read something as short as this. We obviously read longer texts. I teach towards C1, C2 exams, B2 sometimes. So they have to read. But I also like to give them short texts and encourage them to delve into the text. And again, with UDL, what's the choice? What choice can you give your students? If it's towards the exam, multiple choice is an option, true or false, something else, yes? But when I don't teach towards the exam, I choose a text and I get my students to work on the text in a different way. Again, if this was a live workshop, we could share ideas, perhaps. But what could students do with a text like this? Some students like drawing, okay? Some students might want to create a sequence, like a timeline of what happened first, what happened next. Some students may want to create like an ideas map of what happened in the text. Some students find it fun to write like continue the conversation between the two men, okay? Some people find it fun to create a conversation between the two men and their boss once they were found out, yes, caught doing what they're doing, for example. Some people are more philosophical and they want to know what happened to the gorilla and the lion in the first place. Yeah, so students are different, and it's honestly worth working on a short text and allow students to process the text in a way which is good for them. And it's surprising to begin with, in our country, in Poland, students, expect that the teacher will tell them what to do. You do this and that. But eventually, when they open up, the world is your oyster. So, yes, UDL again, it gives them the choice, yes, how they want to process a text like this. They can write a similar text, perhaps. They can turn this into a text message. Yes, they could record it on their phone. They could role play a situation. Honestly, it's amazing what you can do as long as students are okay with that. Okay, guys, I'm sure you know things called plenaries, and I've become a fan of these because, again, it allows me to slow down, but it allows me to find out from the students how they feel, what they like, what they don't like, what they've remembered, what they find difficult. And again, it's a gesture towards the students. UDL is about making gestures, showing empathy, showing that you care, and showing that you understand that we're all different and we prefer to learn in different ways. There's this site, Never Stop Learning. I've shared it many times and I will never stop. This is what it looks like. You can find it online. When you find it online, it's easy because you can display it. And students use dice. You need 2 dice. Obviously, you can again find online dice. A lot of students appreciate real dice because they're tactile learners and they can focus better if they have something in their hands. Yeah, hands busy, brain busy kind of principle. And have a look. I mean, these are very nice expressions, but you have to find the time at the end of your lesson for this plenary. If you find no time, then you will not get any response from students. And I don't like this anymore. I always do that now. And sometimes it's very hard because you want to finish off, something like past perfect before the end of the lesson, but maybe planning can change to accommodate for this. Yes, UDL is about accommodating, is about accommodation as well. Okay, do you know this technique? I've given you the where it comes from, and Maggie Ma, the woman, rose, thorn, and bud. I think it's also used in psychology, if I'm not mistaken. It's used in business. This is where I learned it from. In leadership, rose, thorn, and bud. Also comes from scouting. I think this is what scouts again in America. Sadly, not sadly, wrong word, but seem to follow what people do in America. It's a technique which allows you to, at the end of the lesson or at the beginning of the new lesson, to work and reflect on what you like about the classes, for example, or a particular topic that you're discussing, what you don't really like about the class or the topic that you're discussing, and what you're hopeful for. Yeah, so what would you like to learn in class? And again, I don't do it every lesson. I do it like perhaps 3 times a semester. And it allows me to find out what the students enjoy the most, what gives them the sense of success, what is challenging, and what they're hoping to learn. So what else can I do to make learning again more accessible? Yeah, you can read up on this. It's a nice technique, worth using. As I said, people use it in business, but it can be used by anyone. My students are an example. Certainly. Okay. Are you following so far, guys? Because I probably speak too fast and everything. I'm hoping to make some sense. Okay, another useful site, and I love this site, is where you have, I'm sure you're familiar with exit tasks and exit tickets, we call them again. And this site has very useful and fun tasks that you can use with the students. Some of them are probably fairly common, and some of them I find inspiring. One of my favorites is, for example, how to stump the teacher, which is at the end of the lesson, either about vocabulary or grammar or a topic that you cover and discuss. Students have to ask you a question that you will probably not be able to answer straight away. So my teenage students are very good at this. They, at the end of, recently, at the end of the lesson about literature, I think it was about reading books in general. They must have found it out somewhere on the internet in the meantime. I don't know how, but they asked me what a frontispiece was. Frontispiece. Luckily, I had some idea what it was, but it was like, oh God, well, I used to know this word. But again, this shows them that you're human, and so I like this one. Another activity from this site is Tell the Teenie. Is like at the end of the lesson, work in pairs or in groups of 3 or on your own, and see if you could explain what happened in class, like in terms of what we learned, to a student who was absent. Yeah. So honestly, a number of techniques which will allow students to process information. And when you, for example, neurodivergent, you don't process in the same way as other people. You may need more time, you may need a quiet moment, or perhaps just the opposite. Yes, you need people around you to produce something, perhaps some encouragement. It depends, you know. So it definitely helps people focus and allows silence as well in the classroom if that's what people require. So that's good. I love this one. Rock, paper, and scissors activity. Again, it's type of a plenary where students have to identify the hardest part, one takeaway or two takeaways from the class, and one activity that they would like to cut out. And you know what? Because of that, I've learned, honestly, every year I learn what my group or groups, what they don't like. And I find out things that, oh, I thought this was so enjoyable. Oh, I put so much effort into it. And they found it not helpful. And a lot of the students not helpful because it was too much of something. There wasn't enough of something. It was too loud, for example. Yes. Or I didn't understand the instructions, which is often the case. Or what's the point? Yes. If you have neurodivergent students, they often ask, what's the point of this? And when you explain what the point of something is, they say, okay, I understand. As they focus better. I have a student like this year, well, more than one, Antec, and he always needs to know. But you know, what to cut out. It's really a way to find out what your students don't like. Doesn't mean you don't do it, okay? But you're more aware of it, perhaps, and you look for other ways of encouraging your students to think. Okay, guys, I'll be finishing soon. A few more slides, but nearing the end. Traditional education that I was part of and I used to be as a teacher is kind of static or stative, as they say. So basically, no matter who you have in the class, you do the same. So young people, old people, grade 1, grade 3, grade 8, you do the same. Adaptive education, which was slightly better, this is 2000 kind of in Poland, I think, when it started, is you walk into the classroom and you see who you have in the classroom and you react. So this is reactive. You notice you've got someone who is neurodivergent, you notice something else, I don't know, somebody who perhaps has trouble seeing properly, hearing properly, etc., and you react accordingly, okay? And this person often feels sort of singled out and doesn't feel comfortable in the class. And UDL is about being proactive. So assuming, based on, I hope, some valid research, about 20% of the population worldwide has some neurodivergency, okay? Which means that you can assume safely that there will be people in your class who need to learn in a different way. And you simply don't make a fuss about this. You prepare like this. You give them the choice, for example. Yeah, you give them the choice. You change the fonts of your PowerPoint, etc. You don't use animations. You use audio scripts when possible, just by default. Yes, just simply because it's there, and they will appreciate it. And I see a lot of difference. I must admit, sort of like from 6 years ago, the way I did not use these techniques to now. Although obviously, you know, I have different students. It's not a valid piece of research, but it's just I find it easier, I think, to reach the students. Okay, how to go about this is like when you build a hut. Sometimes people would like to build it as quickly as possible and move in, yes, but my way of dealing with UDL is like stick by stick. So for the last 6 years, 7 years, I think, I've been adding things. So I read about UDL and I come across a concept and an aspect, a technique. So I use it, and it's like kind of stick by stick. I'm beginning to stick to it, if you know what I mean. So don't rush into it if you're not familiar. If you use it and you're fluent, that's wonderful. But don't rush into it. Just see it. Just smell it, sense it. You need to find things that you like I'm more of an experimenter myself with this technique. Sometimes it annoys me. Sometimes I think it's impossible. It puts a lot of strain on me and like, oh, come on. But because I'm so used to it now, I don't think I could do it in any other way. Basically, it has just, my mindset has changed. Now, I will in a moment send you the link to this site. This is the official cast site, excuse me, and materials produced by a lady called Katie Novak. Anyone familiar with Katie Novak? She's one of the most prolific researchers, but also experts, shall we say, and users of UDL. She's sometimes criticized for being too UDL-like, but I think she believes in her cause, and I admire the woman for this. She's also a very good speaker. You can find her on YouTube and listen to her. Her books are very useful, practical, I think. And she's the one who came up with the term of latte culture. Anyone familiar with this? Latte culture? She took a lot of rap for this because people say that current generations are spoiled, and in the past we only had one type of coffee in this country. You may remember kawa po turecku, Turkish coffee, and everybody drank it and nobody made any fuss. And then suddenly we have coffee like this, coffee like that, coffee with milk like this, coffee with milk like that. And to some extent you may agree, but also times have changed. And if you can have stuff like this, then I never know what's better, to have it or not to have it. But at the same time, as clients, for example, if some of you are vegan, vegetarian, perhaps, if you go to someone's party and this person has invited you to that party and they didn't bother asking what you eat, and you arrive and all you can see is pork chops, or perhaps you come from a culture where pork is not eaten, that's not a gesture towards you. Yeah, so you have to, find your way in UDL and make sense for yourself. That's the best way. That's what the experts actually are saying. Just read about it, feel it. And this is what you have UDL Explorer. So the person who's just starting with UDL, you've got UDL Novice. So you use it on some days. You've got UDL Intermediate, which is me on most days. I try to be a good girl and use techniques. UDL Advanced on most days, but students actually know much more and I can clarify things a bit better and make it even more accessible. So this is where I'm heading for, hoping to, this is what I'm aspiring for. And UDL Idle, when you use it every day, every lesson, etc. I'm not there yet, I probably won't be, but I'll send you the link for this, send you in a moment, paste it into the chat box. Yes, it's a very useful document. You will also find a lot of other things which are quite useful to read up on. Yeah, so no time today to talk about this, but perhaps we can have another webinar if anyone is interested. Okie dokie. And another nice site, which I quite like, is Think UDL. As you can see, it's very UDL-like because you can read and listen. So it caters for people who'd rather see and listen, or people with impaired vision, perhaps, or etc. So wonderful thing. It's about being inclusive, impactful. Yes, teach to reach is the motto of UDL. Teach to reach as many as possible. You won't reach everyone, but certainly we can do much more to reach more, basically. Yeah. Okay, guys, that's it from me, except for the link. Thank you. If you have any comments, questions, please paste them. And in the meantime, I have to find this link. Okay. Hoping not to.
Okay, be bold enough to speak up so that we speed up the procedure of information and views and opinions exchange. Anyone would like to say something?
Comment, yes, guys, you're more than welcome to make a comment, either positive or critical. I don't mind. That's how we're learning. And let's see if the link I have just pasted, can you please see if it...
I'm checking it on my own. I'm clicking on it. And it has me taken to UDL resources for all grades and subject areas.
Yes.
So it works.
It works, and it's really very useful when once you go through it, you can download documents. There's a nice UDL wheel. Can you maybe hang on? Maybe I can. How are we doing for time? We're doing fine. So I just share it because it's. I don't know. I find it useful, guys. When I get excited about something, you can't stop me, basically. Apologies. UDL wheel. Okay.
Many commentaries, by the way, positive commentaries, all of them. Thank you very much. They appreciate it. They teach to. Somebody has written Michał Adamus. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Aga Burzyńska. Thank you very much, and so on. Yes. So everybody enjoyed it, and if I were to say anything, I would say that I like your method of dealing with it. That's really so teacher friendly, you know, chunk by chunk, yes, and adapting it to our unique situation.
It's such a massive concept, honestly, that in an hour you have to make choices again, because to go through it all, it's requires, but again, thank you very much. Yes, I did try to do my best. I don't know if can you see this wheel now?
Yes, we can see it on the screen. Yes, figure
on
B.
the screen. So you see, this is too small print, so we can't discuss it. But when you see it, you will see different types of tasks for different things. Yes, options for perception, for self-regulation, etc. So all of these are types of tasks. Yeah, so it's very useful, this site. Yeah, so study it if you feel like getting to know more about UDL. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, obviously.
And thank you for joining us, our positive team of speakers. We all learners, all of us teachers, learners, appreciate you being with us. And in between the lines, you said something about another webinar, so we will remember about it, because we want to become universal teachers. Yes, so universal. The teachers of the universe, yes, we might say.
We might need some, I suggest some live workshop or something, because it is something that a lot of people here, I believe, are experienced enough to share their ideas, which in this format is not so possible. I mean, obviously it is possible, but it will take forever, yes, and it's so maybe some live workshops, and maybe some of you guys can join in and contribute your insights. I would love that.
Okay, good idea. So we will all reflect on this idea as our homework, yes, and we will keep in touch with you. Of course, we are we have clicked on the link. I have it. I keep it so that later on I can have a look at it, closer look at it, and I'm sure all of us will enjoy developing our skills, developing our reflective thinking about our learners. Yes, because that you've made us aware. Once again, we've been made aware of the fact that our learners are so different, and we do have methods to reach as many of them as possible. So thank you for this, Marta.
Yes, and we have to unlearn, because I think we've learners, we have to become unlearners and unlearn things we've been doing for years. Yeah. So, and students, I keep saying, will not change. We are getting older, so are they, but they will not change if we don't play the way they want us to play. Don't get me wrong. We're not going
We have to follow the rules of the game. That's obvious.
By opposing the change, I think we burn out as teachers, basically. So that's what I believe in.
Yes, agree. change is the only constant these days. So we have to be changing, keep changing. Thank you,
Have no
dear
choice.
Marta.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Guy. Have a
Thank
good
you
evening.
so much. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening. Yes, bye-bye.
Thank you.